Hey everyone, it's Mariko with Rella Associates, and today I wanted to go over the buying process in 7 steps. So if you've never bought before, or you bought and you didn't know what the next step was until you got to that step, that is why I wanted to go over these 7 steps so you can be prepared in advance. So step number 1 is to get educated, and I cannot stress this enough. Whether you are planning to buy in a year, planning to buy in a few months, you just started saving up, it's always important to know what's going to happen. That being said, I would highly advise you to go familiarize yourself with the neighborhoods. Go talk to an agent. They'll probably want to have coffee with you to learn about, what kind of house you're searching for, what neighborhood, all your wants and needs, and your current situation. And talk about what additional costs to expect down the road, what your expectations are. I want to note a common thing that people are often surprised about is that no, you don't have to put 20% down, and number 2, kind of how it works in the real estate world, with there being a listing agent as well as a buyer's agent. Now, the listing agent is the agent whose name you will see on the for sale sign of the house. They are the agent that is representing the sellers. And if you have been to an open house before and meet an agent inside, they are most often not the listing agent. Sometimes they are, but a lot of times they are not. They are just an agent that is helping that listing agent out and hoping to meet new clients to help in the future. And they might not know all the information about the house, but that's totally fine. That is where your buyer's agent is going to come in. Buyer's agent's job is to work with you throughout this whole process from step 1 all the way till close. They're going to help look for houses for you, going to show you houses, and finally they're going to be the ones that's going to make the offer for you. Just remember, they are representing you. And a lot of people don't know this, but you don't have to pay the buyer's agent a dime. And that is because in Washington State, at the end of a transaction, the sellers are going to pay both the listing agent and the buyer's agent at the end of the transaction. Number 2 is inquire with a lender. And like I mentioned in the get educated process, even if you're not 100% sure if you're gonna buy, soon or maybe in a few years, it's always important to go talk with a lender. And don't worry, it's free to inquire and get more information about what you should be doing now to prepare in advance to get pre-approved. A lot of great loan officers will go through different scenarios, and depending on how much you plan to put down in the future, they'll give you some tips on what you can do now. So step 3 is to get pre-approved. Now, this pre-approval process is so important. So number 1, it's going to tell you how much you can afford based on which loan program you've chosen. And also, when you've chosen a house that you've decided to make an offer for, it's going to show the seller that you are fully qualified to buy their home and that you actually have the funds to close on their home. And this is so important for the seller because they want to make sure that you have the funds to close on this purchase and that their home doesn't go back on the market because financing fell through. On that application, you're going to share your personal information as well as your income, any assets, answer all the questions. Once that loan officer gets your information, then they are going to have you verify all that information by providing further documentation. Another important note is that the sellers, they won't be taking their house off the market unless you have this pre-approval letter. And also, a lot of sellers nowadays with multiple offers are having you provide proof of funds to show that you actually can afford the home. And another reason why I stress getting this pre-approval when you're almost certain that you're ready to buy a house and are actually going to open houses and looking is if you find that perfect house, say on a Sunday, and you want to make an offer, well, that's going to be pretty hard to get that pre-approval letter. A lot of, preferred lenders, they do work on weekends, but if this is your first time contacting them, they have to get all that information from you. And people that already have that pre-approval letter in hand, they're already one step ahead of you and can make an offer. If there's an offer review deadline, it's already too late. Last, I want to mention, if you decide to purchase a condo, make sure to tell your loan officer, because sometimes those added fees that come with condos, that can decrease your pre-approval amount. So make sure to ask your lender if you would qualify for it, because that amount could change. And number 4 is to determine your house criteria. So by this, I mean, you know, what location do you want to live in? How many bedrooms? How many bathrooms? What's important for you? Is the commute more important? Is the school district more important? Is the house itself more important? Are you okay with a house that needs to be remodeled? All of this you should share with your agent so they can be on the lookout for the right house for you as well. And you'll probably know if you found that perfect house for you, but honestly, if about 75% of that search criteria is matched, I would say you found a good house. Also advise, you know, search that neighborhood. Go during peak school hours, go during traffic hours, find out what the commute will be like. I always advise, you know, the neighborhood is so important. It's not just the house, but the whole neighborhood itself, and get a feel for if you feel comfortable here, if you can see yourself living in this type of community. So number 5 is make an offer and negotiation. So price is super important, as you know, it's one of the main points that a seller looks at. But in addition to that, there's so many different terms, such as what financing you're using, if you're waiving contingencies, your earnest money. And there's so many parts of this contract that can be negotiated in certain markets and some that can't be negotiated in certain markets. So we'll tell you in advance when we are writing the offer, it is what you want in the offer, and we'll explain to you what this would mean for you, and if, say, we were to waive a contingency, what would that mean for you as well? And this is the fun part, coming up with a strategy. In a strong seller's market, unfortunately, there's not a lot of wiggle room to sway away from. In a more buyer's market, or if the home has been on the market for a while, sometimes we can make some negotiations, ask the sellers to pay your closing costs, to do some inspection fixes. It all depends on the market. So typically this is kind of a back and forth process. It all depends on the situation, if there's multiple offers or if there's not, but usually there is some back and forth, and once that is officially decided on, you will have mutual acceptance. So number 6 is your due diligence, escrow, and appraisal. So what does this all mean? So during this time, it usually takes about 30 to 40 days till you officially close on your home. And what I mean by close is the closing date is the day you get the keys and are officially the new owner. Just a quick note, in short, escrow is the third party, kind of a middleman. They don't represent the seller, they don't represent you. They are the middleman, who you will send your down payment to, who you will make your monthly mortgage to, who you'll give your earnest money to, because your monthly mortgage consists of interest, principal, taxes, that sort of stuff. And the next big hurdle that you have to go through is the appraisal. Your house has to appraise for how much you offered to buy it for. An appraiser will come to your house, look at the comps, and make sure that it's at market value. If the appraiser deems it's a lower value, well, that's another situation, and we can go through that later. So now what is my job during this process? Well, now I kind of take on the role as your project manager. I will keep track of all the contingency deadlines, keep you in the loop of what decisions you have to make, and make sure you're aware of what's going on throughout this process so we don't miss any important key dates. So number 7 is finally closing. Everything that we together have been working towards. It's from getting mutually accepted all the way to the closing date. So at the end of the transaction, usually about a couple days or the day before, you will go into your escrow office for the big signing. And this is after they receive the final loan document. So escrow will schedule the signing, which will take about 45 minutes to an hour. You're gonna sign your name about 60 plus times, and the escrow officer will send off the documents to the county to be recorded. So once we are released to record and official recording numbers come in from the county, you are the new owner. Yay! And this usually happens in the afternoon of the closing date. So honestly, that was a lot of information, but I promise you it's really not that stressful and hard. So let me know if you have any questions now or in the future, and I'd love to help you out. Thanks, guys!